welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you have not been here before. I am working on making some creative goals today, and I thought I would talk through the process here. My whiteboard all clean. I am a writer. I write novels, epic fantasy novels, some nonfiction stuff, and scripts, both film and television. I have not sold anything yet, but I write a lot of it, so when the day comes when things start to sell, I'm going to have piles of options. Making creative goals can be challenging as a writer or as a different kind of creative, because oftentimes you're responsible for your own goal. There is no one giving you a deadline. A lot of creative projects, like, you make up front and then you try and sell it when it's complete, which means that you are putting in all the time, energy, sweat, blood, and tears ahead of time, and no one is looking over your shoulder saying, hey, are you done that yet? Are you done that yet? Are you done that yet? And when you get to a certain point in your career, like, you'll have deadlines for things, but there are a lot of scenarios, even like for a writer, for instance, who's like far in their career. When a screenwriter is coming up with a new idea, there's no one holding them accountable to do it. You have to take it on yourself to do it, and then after you finish, then you can sell it. So the challenge with making creative goals is to actually do them, as is the challenge with a lot of goals. I am sitting here thinking about my goals for this year, but also like for the foreseeable future, which I would say is like a shorter amount of time than 2024. I am not in the habit of doing plans for an entire year ahead of time, but usually I know what I want to accomplish writing wise for each year, no matter what I end up doing with the rest of my time. So that is what I'm working on today. So I have my beautiful whiteboard here. I don't know what it is about whiteboards. I think you use a whiteboard a lot when screenwriting because it just gives you the flexibility to write things down, but also erase it easily, which is really important in planning, especially when planning like a script. Outlining a script is a very important step of screenwriting, and you change your mind a lot when you're writing an outline, because you might start the story thinking that you know what you want to happen, and then you realize that it doesn't fit in your story. You either have too much or you don't have enough, and then you have to add a bunch of things, and it really helps to have a surface that you can erase easily and also see the entirety of. So this is a very small whiteboard, but I do use it for outlining, and I've erased my outline that was on here because I have it written somewhere else. And now I am going to use it today for outlining my creative goals for the year. I'm going to hold it the long way so that I can have more than one column. I'm going to put books on the right because book projects obviously are more words than a script. Generally, books take me longer to write because they're longer. Which sounds obvious, but I mean, for some people, everyone writes at a different pace, and it's not right or wrong what pace you write at. So for me, I'm making books a smaller category because I will have fewer projects in that row. And then I am going to do film and television, which are obviously both scripts, but they are different kinds of scripts. I write both, and so I am making my categories for both. And some projects I don't know if any of the ones I'm thinking about for this year apply to this, but sometimes projects, when I'm thinking about an idea for a script, there are certain ideas that I don't know if it's a TV show or a movie. And so I'm not going to put a line there because sometimes they bleed into each other, and that's okay. So here are my categories. The first thing that I know I want to write this year is a book. It is a epic fantasy novel. The first book I know I want to write this year is actually kind of more editing than writing, although it's going to be a lot of rewriting, so I'm counting it as like a writing project. I have a book. I have a mostly done first draft of the second book in a series. It's an epic fantasy series that I wrote, and I have this mostly done first draft. My first drafts of books are like notoriously awful. I feel like no one's first draft of their book is perfect, and honestly, most people I know have horrible first drafts too, which is comforting to me because mine are so bad. There's this phrase like, writing is rewriting, because you do a lot of rewriting when you're a writer. So I really want to rewrite / edit the draft that I have of this book. I have the first one done, and actually I'm querying agents with it, which is a whole situation that goes very slowly. The publishing industry moves so slowly. But I want to have the second book ready. And so that is my first thing on my list. Next on my list is a film. It's a comedy feature. It's in the film column. Feature just means film, like full length. And actually, earlier this week I outlined it, and I think I might be able to write that one faster than I thought. But I don't really know. We'll find out. When I have an idea for a writing project, a lot of times I write down my initial idea. I'm really excited about it. Sometimes I start writing right away, but even if I do, I still end up setting it aside and thinking about it for a while. The trick with creative projects is not thinking that you have to do it all right away. Even if you have an idea, the longer your idea sits and the more you think about it and the more ways you kind of spin it and spin the story and think about what you want to say with a story, the better the idea gets. And so with creative projects, I never have just one that I'm trying to work on, because then I only get one done, and inevitably there will be periods of time where I have to just sit and wait and stew. And that is just part of the creative process. And so I have this wide variety of ideas, and I have goals for what I want to do, and I also try and like come up with what I think I can do in a year or in the foreseeable future, whatever that means. Less than a year for me at this point. With this comedy feature, I had the initial idea a few months ago, and it's kind of been stewing, and then earlier this week I finally sat down and outlined it, and I'm really excited about it, and it kind of just like clicked. So I am trying to write that one in the next few days. Who knows how much I'll get done, but I'm excited for that one. All right, so then in my TV column, I have a TV show. Okay, I actually am going to erase that, and I'm going to put my first TV show of this column lower. My top 2 priorities are this comedy film and this book rewrite, and I think after that comes everything else, because those are the top two things that I want to get done soonest. The film script will get done so much faster than the book, because the book is like a 400-500 page book, and a comedy feature is only 120 pages maximum. So for a TV show, I have this idea. I'm not giving you my ideas. I'm being very vague about my ideas, because the point is not me sharing my ideas, it's sharing my process. So there is this TV show. Let me figure out how to abbreviate it. I'm gonna call it Space and Earth. I love the sci-fi genre. I love fantasy the most, but sci-fi, especially in TV, like, I feel like fantasy can be really hard to do. It ends up being a lot of like visual effects and stuff. I don't like dragons on TV. This is like a sci-fi TV show that I've had the idea for a while, and again, it's like the same as the film. I've kind of like been jotting down ideas. A TV show is a little bit, a TV show, you need different things when you write it. So it's obviously shorter than a film script, but you also have to come up with a concept for the whole show. It's a little bit more of a project, because you're not just writing a single script, you're also writing background on a lot more things. But that is something that I would really like it to get done this year. I would love to get done another book that, again, I'm abbreviating. It's the second one in a series. It's not as intense of a project as the other series that I'm writing. I'm actually writing like 10 different series right now in fantasy books. So I say this series, that series, that series a lot. I just write a lot. Whenever I get ideas, I write them, and I write every day, and a lot just comes out of my brain. So, you know, this series I don't care as much about as the first one, but I mean, I still care about it, but it's not my top priority in book writing. Hopefully I will have the time and energy to get that done this year too. And then as far as books go, there are some books that I've started, that I've like started the whole series, like all 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books in the series at the same time. I need to go back and actually like finish. So I'm going to put a little dot there. These are things that, like, if I end up having time, I would like these to be kind of next on the agenda, but also not a top priority. So it just really depends how much time I end up having to devote to writing this year. And I feel like that is my book column pretty much done. So when I go to plan out my calendar, I know how many words an hour I write, both in books and in scripts. In scripts, it's like how many pages an hour I write. In books, it's how many words an hour I write. And so I know that if I sit down and commit the time, I can get a certain amount done. Whether I feel super inspired or not that inspired, like, I know my average. I think it's a real asset to write enough or like work on your creative projects enough to know how fast you go, like what your pace is. That makes it so much easier for creative planning, because then you can more realistically decide what you can get done in a certain amount of time. I have been writing, I mean a long time, but I have been pursuing writing seriously for about 7 years, 7 or 8 years now. And so I have tried a lot of things. When I hear about things that work for other people, I give it a try, because like, why not? I've like failed at a lot of things. I've figured out a lot of things that don't work for me, but I've also figured out a lot of things that do, and so I'm pretty confident in my ability to get stuff done. I also know that for me, when I write, the first draft is never like a great draft. So my first drafts, as a rule, like a personal rule, I don't show to people, which means if I have certain deadlines where I know that I want to show people something, for instance, like a writing group, and I know that I need to have something done for a writing group, then I know that I have to budget the time to not only write something, but also put in some time editing and revising so that that thing would be ready to have eyes laid on it. When you're making creative goals, you have to kind of figure out what you want the end goal to be, because obviously the goal is to like have projects that you can sell and that other people can look at and read and give you feedback on. But different kinds of projects take different amounts of time after you have finished writing your first draft. So when you're making these goals, you kind of want to figure out, is this including like my first draft, second, third, fourth, fifth, final draft? Or is this like just making a first draft? For me, it kind of depends on the project. I think for my book that I really want to get done, that's a rewrite. I already have a first draft, so I want like a good draft of that book. For my film, my comedy film, I'm going to write a first draft, but then after I write a first draft, I always set it aside and kind of give it space for a few days before going back and revising. I think I want to get my comedy film in final form, to be determined how many drafts that takes. And then for my TV show, I am not in a hurry for that. So I guess my goal with that one is to have a first draft done, a sketch outline of how I envision the show going. And I want it to be in a good enough place where if I happen to meet someone who I pitch the idea to and they're interested, I can like tweak things easily and it's not going to take tons and tons and tons more work. So far. Another thing I'd like to do this year is finish at least one of my rom-coms. I have these rom-com ideas. I thought I was going to write them last year and I just didn't get to it. I just didn't have the motivation, and I spent a lot of time in the action genre, which was fun, but did not get the rom-coms done. So I think I have at least 8 rom-coms that I like have kind of outlined and kind of started writing. And so I would like to end the year with at least one finished rom-com script. So I'm going to put at least. There is also a 30-minute comedy show, like a sitcom, that I would like to write. That one I actually have a lot of the concept of the show done. I just have to actually write the script. For whatever reason, comedy has just been really intimidating to me so far, and so this year I will conquer comedy. I'm starting with a comedy film, which I feel really confident about, and then I'm going to try and move it to TV. And there's actually a second 30-minute comedy pilot that I want to write, and if one goes well, hopefully the other one will go well, because I feel like in 30-minute comedy, it's a lot about pace, and so once you get the pace down, then you can write a good show. I'm gonna try. I think this is going to be my final list for now of new things that I want to write for the foreseeable future. I'm sure I will revisit this in a few weeks, a few months, whenever I have made progress on this, to kind of update it, which I think is really important with creative goals, because they aren't set in stone. If you do this, you will definitely succeed. I think if you keep writing, you will definitely finish writing it at some point. But then also there are authors who write the same book for 10 years, and then there are people who start writing, realize that they're not fully set on the idea, and then put it to the side and then come back to it in a few years. And none of those things are wrong. None of those things are failures either. You just have to be willing to have the flexibility of mind to be able to know what's best for your project and where you as an artist actually are with your process. I have this like space at the bottom of my whiteboard and I don't know what to do with it. It's beckoning me to write something in it and I just don't know what to do. Because honestly, I'm really happy with this list. I think it encapsulates the things that I want to focus on and I want to do. I have my projects prioritized, and I do write a lot of projects at the same time because for me, I'm really good at sitting down and focusing on the same project and blocking everything else out, working for a few hours and then setting that aside and picking up a different project and then doing the same thing. So this is how my brain works. This is how my creative planning process works. And my whiteboard is really little, but I didn't even fill it up, which makes me think that I don't have enough, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I literally have 12 projects written on here. Like, I think I have enough. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you in the next one.